Professor should say a few words. But as you all know, those who are members of the World Academy, the founding fathers in 1960, when they created the Academy, in their basic statement, they suggested that the Academy should work like an informal world university. That's what they said at that time. 1960, I think they were thinking that the fellows could go to a campus, physical campus, provide lectures. They're all excellent people, thinking interdisciplinarity, globally, etc. But in those days, I think the climate was not yet ready for that. I think we are coming to a stage now that the WAS president, chairman of the board, are really to pursue this idea. Because education is really at the bottom of all these efforts that we are trying to do globally. So I think the moment has come to discuss the possibility of creation of a world university. Maybe now has to be virtual, or a combination of virtual and presential, I don't know, we will have to find out. But the idea is that we would hear, three of us, Alberto, Zucconi, would mention to you the basic mission. Winston will also speak about that. Alberto will give an overview. Winston will say about the mission. I will speak some of the activities, just to divide the task. But of course, the two big bosses are here, so they will join us answering your questions and asking for your collaboration. If we're going to do something, we cannot reinvent the wheel. The wheel has been reinvented. How can we find the best which has already been done and partner with them for the benefit of all? And remember, we are talking here from a global point of view. The numbers of young people who are not yet in universities in the developing world is a substantial number. Some people say that by 2030, there was a good study made by an Australian scientist, say that we may have 520 million people, which will be aiming for higher education in the world. It's a very large number, much larger than we thought earlier. And in my own country, I just mentioned this, in Brazil, 2 weeks from now, 7.5 million people from the ages of 16 to 18 will go to a national exam to find a place in a public or in a private university in Brazil. Only 3.1 million will get a space. 4.4 million have no chance. Neither public nor private. We consider them, this is the no generation. Not in school and not in jobs. So they will have all kinds of problems in society. So we're concerned. We cannot duplicate the number that we need just to reach the level of Argentina and Chile at the moment in terms of offering of higher education. And there are concerns about if you go too fast, what happens to quality? Quantity will be attained, but quality is coming down. That's another major issue. We cannot have the teachers to duplicate the existing number. Garry can give you the numbers from India. He has in his head how many thousands of teachers they will have to train in a very short time to attain the goal for the next few years. So I think the academy can play a role. Of course, we cannot do it by ourselves. It has to be with the cooperation of all of you and those that may be not here in this room that we hope to identify in the coming months. So this is the opening remarks. I'll ask Alberto now to speak about this.
Actually, the role of the academy is very clear. We don't have anything to teach to anybody. We have a role much more important in our belief. We want to be facilitating a process where all the stakeholders are welcome. All the stakeholders are welcome, but we're gonna make our value explicit. Something we see rarely happens. Our founding father in their mission of the academy were very clear. When we cannot communicate, understanding and respecting each other, wars is the result. Now, in 2013, we see still that communication and respect are rare commodities. Education, so, is such an important thing to be reduced to mere information in the classroom. So We want to create, with all the stakeholders and expressing our value clearly, what? A safe place where to communicate, to disagree, and also to learn from each other, to brainstorm, and to cross-pollinate. We are welcoming each of you, each of your stakeholders to join, not us, but join all the good willing women and men that see that we have a mission, is to be more aware of where we're going and what we're doing. That's going to be achievable only if we do it all together.
Dr. Winston Nagan will speak about the mission of the World University Consortium.
We don't have one yet, but but with that caveat, well, I think the statement is very concise that has been distributed, but I think I can summarize its main point and say that I think the role or the mission of the consortium is really to facilitate a process of communication and collaboration with as many of the stakeholders as are involved in the multi-dimensional components of the larger problem that we confront, namely the crisis that we anticipate in higher education at the global level, which is essentially a demographic crisis. And the problem is basically, we're probably seeing the problem before governments and official agencies, and maybe one of our tasks is to pool our resources, communicate, collaborate, share information, share the new technologies, keep abreast with every possibility that will ultimately evolve to promote and defend, if you like, accessible, affordable, higher education on a global basis. And we add to this one of the themes of our modern scholarship in the academy, and that is the human-centered approach. And the human-centered approach captures our concern that ultimately the wealth of nations reposes in human capital. And if you waste human capital by not educating them and so on, these are major deficits for any economic culture, and certainly globally. The scale of the projected deficits, if we don't react to it, could be quite catastrophic. So we've also added something in here, the notion that maybe the guideline that we could proffer is the notion of an emphasis on contextualized knowledge. Just to add to that, the context is one of the most important ways of understanding what a problem is. And if education is going to be in part a response to problems that we face in the development of educational models that are essentially responses to the problems in the real world, then we need an adequate level of contextualization to better understand what exactly it is. In addition, we see knowledge, as has been said earlier today, as having a transformational capacity. And we need to keep the notion of knowledge and transformation at the forefront of our consciousness, at the forefront of our innovations, and the forefront of our own interventions into the global problem that we anticipate. And so, and finally, we look at transformation in terms of not just knowledge and skills, but also values. And again, from a global perspective, we bring essentially the cluster of agreed upon global values, which the gentleman from Oberlin College yesterday summarized in terms of the notion of dignity. And if you get the next edition of Eruditu, he's got a brilliant article on the dignitarian university. So, but dignity is the shorthand for the entire cluster of values that capture the comprehensive human rights framework, the comprehensive humanitarian framework, the comprehensive concern for sustainable development, and the morality of ecology, and of course the ethics of being. So those, it seems to us, must in some way, shape, or form be configured into whatever the education process ultimately amounts to. And we stress again the full potentials of the human personality. I think every educator recognizes today that we only capture a small portion of human potential and human capability. Even early pragmatists like William James said the amount of human capacity that we actually expose in education is rather a fraction of what it actually is. So obviously our message here then, I suppose, is that we like the mission to be an optimistic idea, a positive approach to what the problems are that confront us, and how we think these are manageable and solvable if we approach it with reason, rationality, and ingenuity. Thank you.
Thank you, Winston. There is a brief outline of what the objectives of this World University Consortium, the initial activities that they have discussed among themselves. Remember, the World Academy has other major issues ahead. We are trying to ensure that people's also bring that together. What is our desire to have a new global paradigm, which is important. So education was part of this, essential part of this element, but I think this World University Consortium will be an excellent opportunity to contribute. Basically, the objectives are to identify global best practice and develop effective global models and strategies to improve accessibility, affordability, quality, innovation, and relevance in higher education appropriate to the needs of this 21st century. To develop innovative, open learning systems, more effective models that extend the reach of quality higher education to all age groups globally. Explore models of online, hybrid delivery systems designed to facilitate learning through teacher-student and student-student interaction. Enhance learning process through research, development, and application of advanced instruments for measurement and evaluation. Promote person-centered approach that emphasize self-guided learning, critical and original thinking, inspirational forms of instruction, learning to learn, transdisciplinary contextualized perspectives, peer-to-peer learning, edutainment, and experiential learning. They're very ambitious. Foster development transcultural and culture-specific methods and content reflecting universal human values. Create a worldwide forum where all the stakeholders can meet, interact, and create new networks, partnerships, and projects. Of course, there are many possible activities. Of course, one of them is this meeting right here, where we exchange views, and I'm sure maybe I can ask Garry can help me here in the activities. Could you say that? So we share our, you know it by heart, so maybe it goes in my heart.
We realize this is a very, very big task. This is a task for the world, not for a World Academy. And we're just asking ourselves, what can we do? And how much we can do depends on how many partners and collaborators and participants we have in this effort. We've just decided to start with where we are, do what we can. We've been doing research, intensive research, for the last few months to try to understand what's going on, because it's changing so fast. And we decided to come here for our first meeting because this is the place where it's changing fastest. This is the place where it's the center of the innovation. So we really came here to learn. In the process, we created a website, and we've been trying to catalog all that we're learning as we go along. One of the things we found was we really didn't find a comprehensive, reliable, impartial source of information on this that would be useful to the rest of the world. There are many people who have something to offer, which is very valuable, but naturally they're going to emphasize their aspect of it. We've tried to come at it looking at it from a global perspective and in terms of global needs. So our first very modest goal is to create a site which will be up to date and covering the full spectrum of developments. And that's why we were so eager to learn and listen to all of you. That's why we traveled around meeting as many of you as we could and asked you for your papers so we can put them up there. And we'll continue to update this site and try to link it to all other available information that's available, journals, conferences, and so forth. So there's some place that people can come wherever they're in the U.S. or anywhere else in the world to get the big picture. This is our first step. We've already had requests. Just, is it really this month? No, it was last month. Ivo and I were in Azerbaijan, and we mentioned to the president of Azerbaijan after lunch that we're taking this initiative. We thought it was a casual interaction for a few minutes, and it may not go beyond that. And the next thing we knew, we had a minister coming and signing an MOU and saying we want to collaborate because we must do something. And the next day we were touring one of their major state universities with the president of the university who's saying we really need help and guidance. Even though we have collaboration with a dozen foreign universities, we really need some impartial perspective on what's going on. So we know outside of Silicon Valley, outside of the United States, the amount of misconception or misinformation or lack of information is 100 times greater. And therefore, we're looking at what we can do to facilitate the transfer of information there. From here, we're planning a series of conferences, perhaps another in North America or Central America, and then in Europe and in other places. We'd like to invite many of the participants in this conference to come and share your experiences and stories in other parts of the world so that we can have the same type of interaction with people from different countries and different cultures, understand their needs, we heard from George Breslau yesterday, what are his issues that he's grappling with on a day-to-day, and when we hear from presidents of other universities, we had one from Columbia here, we'll see the picture is different in different places, and that will help us broaden our perspective and approach. There's obviously a lot of research that has to be done, and one of it was very exciting to hear from Armando and Philip and Candace about some of the research, and Lynn, and some of the research that they're doing to try to really figure out how we make this work. We'd like to encourage that research, find other research institutes that can take it up and join with it. We also feel, as there's been as it was the theme today, that in our project on New Paradigm, we've come to the conclusion that solving the crises, the most pressing challenges before the world today, will really require fundamental changes in our theory, in the way we think, and the way we teach. It can't just be settled in the forum of the UN or in the Congress or in policy making. Policy making is based on some ideas and conceptions. And I think we've had enough evidence in recent years to know that many of the ideas on which the bad policies are based are themselves bad, or let's say incomplete or one-sided. And therefore, we're going to have to find ways to bring new content and new ideas into the educational system. We have been interacting with many other organizations which, like ourselves, have ties with academia, are linked with academia, but are not academic institutions. For example, earlier last month, Alberto and I were at the 20th anniversary of the Green Cross International, which Gorbachev set up in just 20 years ago to work on environmental issues. And Green Cross is a highly professional organization. They're helping us in the U.S. dismantle our chemical weapons They're doing the same thing in Russia. They're helping in India and Africa try to improve water conservation and water productivity. They have a rich reservoir of knowledge that's not necessarily or to a large extent getting back into the educational system because they're too busy in the field. So we're asking how these new technologies and new platforms like OpenEdX and all can help break down some of the natural barriers between Green Cross, whose job is to make the world safer out in the field, and the university whose job it is to educate the next generation. And we're looking to see whether the consortium can somehow be a bridge between these two. That the same is true of Club of Rome, with which we have very close associations, and they have wonderful expertise on many critical environmental issues, but it tends to be talking out to the world. We want to also see that that conversation goes back to the academic community as much as possible. So we're looking at all of these different ways in which the consortium, I'm not talking about the academy now, I'm talking about a consortium of which the academy is trying to be an initiator, we want to open the door to all those who have something to offer and would like to join us in this effort. We've already had Green Cross International, the president just wrote 2 days ago saying he would really like to associate. We met with the Director General of the UN in Geneva, Kaya, who's a fellow of the Academy. He's the number 2 in the UN. And he said there are critical issues before the UN, which we would love to see in the educational curriculum. We'd love to see those issues being incorporated. UN has an organization called UNITAR, which is the UN Institute for Training and Research. They're trying to go out to the world. They've just started a master's degree course, credit course in peace. But again, it's separate from the traditional university structure. We think the future is the university is going to be, the walls are going to thin, and we want to see if we can bring that in and make it part of an integral offering education. So these are some of the ideas, and our purpose in scheduling this time today is we want to hear your ideas too, and we want to hear the ideas. That's why we're going around and meeting different organizations, those who have something to contribute, those who see a need, those who have ideas about what can be done. And this would be a good time, I think, just to open it up and ask for any comments, suggestions, ideas, questions, criticisms, doubts, whatever may be there, because that will help us. We need that interaction.